Hello, dear traveler. Welcome back to the Midnight Explorer, where we wander through the quiet corridors of history, where we sit by the fireside of human experience, and where we ask the questions that linger in our hearts long after the world has gone to sleep. Tonight, we're going to explore something that has puzzled philosophers, inspired poets, driven warriors to madness, and given meaning to the lives of billions across thousands of years. Tonight, we explore love. Not the love of movies or greeting cards, but the real thing, the mysterious force that has shaped civilizations, rewritten destinies, and transformed ordinary humans into something transcendent. We'll journey through ancient temples and medieval courts, through laboratory experiments and neurological discoveries, through heartbreak and reunion, through the very chemistry of our souls. So, settle in, pull your blanket a little closer, dim the lights, and let me tell you a story. The longest, strangest, most beautiful story ever told. The story of love. It is 3,000 years before the birth of Christ. The sun hangs low over the Mesopotamian plains, casting long shadows across mud-brick walls. In the ancient city of Ur, a young scribe sits cross-legged in a temple courtyard, a reed stylus in his hand, a clay tablet before him. His fingers are stained with ink, his eyes are tired, but he is writing something that will outlast empires. He is writing a love poem. The poem is for Inanna, the goddess of love, fertility, and war, a deity both fierce and tender, both creator and destroyer. But as he writes, the scribe is thinking of someone else, a girl he saw at the market, a girl whose laugh reminded him of water over stones, a girl whose name he doesn't yet know, but whose face he cannot forget. The poem speaks of desire and longing, of the ache that sits beneath the ribs, of the way the world transforms when you catch a glimpse of the one who makes your heart stumble. This is one of the earliest recorded love poems in human history, and what's remarkable, what should make us pause in wonder, is how familiar it feels, how the emotions carved into that ancient clay tablet could have been written yesterday, could have been written by you. Love, you see, is one of the few things that has remained constant across the vast, tumbling river of human history. Let's begin at the very beginning, not with poetry or philosophy, but with biology, with the mechanical, miraculous machinery that makes love possible at all. Picture the human heart, not the symbolic heart of valentines and metaphors, but the actual organ, a fist-sized pump of muscle and blood beating roughly 100,000 times each day, pushing life through 60,000 miles of blood vessels. It weighs less than a pound. It begins beating just 22 days after conception, long before we have hands or eyes or thoughts, and it doesn't stop, can't stop, until the very end. The ancient Egyptians believed the heart was the seat of the soul, the center of thought and emotion and memory. When they mummified their dead, they removed almost every organ, except the heart. The heart, they believed, would be needed in the afterlife, weighed against a feather to determine the worth of a soul. The ancient Greeks had a more complicated view. They believed in multiple types of love, each with its own name, its own character, its own gods. There was eros, passionate, physical love, named after the god of desire. There was philia, deep friendship, the love between companions. There was storge, familial love, the bond between parent and child. There was agape, unconditional, universal love, the kind that asks nothing in return. And there was pragma, enduring love, the kind that grows over time, that weathers storms and survives winters. Even then, even thousands of years ago, humans understood that love was not one simple thing, but a spectrum, a rainbow, a many-chambered heart. But what is love really? Scientists have been trying to answer this question for centuries, and the more they discover, the stranger and more wondrous love becomes. When you fall in love, truly, deeply, helplessly in love, your brain undergoes a transformation that looks, on a neural scan, remarkably similar to what happens when someone takes cocaine. The ventral tegmental area, deep in the midbrain, floods your system with dopamine, the neurotransmitter of pleasure and reward. Your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for judgment and rational thought, actually decreases in activity. You become, quite literally, irrational. At the same time, your body is swept up in a chemical storm. Adrenaline makes your heart race and your palms sweat. Serotonin levels drop, which is why you can't stop thinking about the object of your affection, why they invade your thoughts at every moment, why you feel slightly obsessed. And oxytocin, sometimes called the cuddle hormone, is released when you touch, when you kiss, when you make love, creating a bond that goes beyond conscious thought. And here's the truly remarkable thing. These chemical cascades, these neural fireworks, are not unique to humans. Prairie voles, those tiny rodents of the North American grasslands, experience something very similar. When a prairie vole mates, oxytocin and vasopressin flood their brains, creating a lifelong pair bond. These tiny creatures stay together for life, raising their young together, grieving when they're separated. Love, it seems, is written into the very fabric of mammalian biology. It evolved because it works, because a parent who loves their child will protect them at any cost, because partners who bond will cooperate, share resources, defend each other, because love, for all its complications and contradictions, is a survival strategy. But that's not the whole story, because love is more than biology, more than chemistry, more than evolutionary advantage. Love is the thing that makes us human. Let me take you back further now, back to a time when the world was young and wild, when cities were few and far apart, when most of human life unfolded under open sky. Imagine a night 40,000 years ago. A group of early humans, Homo sapiens, our direct ancestors, sit around a fire in what is now southern France. The stars are impossibly bright, undimmed by any human light. The fire crackles and pops. Children sleep nestled against their mothers. An old woman tends the flames, and a young couple sits slightly apart from the others, hands intertwined, speaking in low voices only they can hear. We don't know what they're saying. We never will. But we know they loved each other. We know because of what they left behind. In caves across Europe, our ancestors painted images on stone walls, images of animals and hands and mysterious symbols. But they also buried their dead with care, with ritual, with objects meant to accompany them into whatever came next. In several sites, archaeologists have found couples buried together, facing each other, hands reaching out even in death. At the Valdaro archaeological site in Italy, there is a burial from 6,000 years ago known as the Lovers of Valdaro, a young man and woman, perhaps in their 20s, buried face to face, arms wrapped around each other. They have remained in that embrace for 6 millennia. What happened to them? Were they struck down by illness or violence at the same moment? Did one die and the other follow soon after, unable to bear the separation? Did their community bury them together because their love was known to all, a love so strong it seemed impossible to separate them even in death? We can only wonder, but their embrace speaks across the vast gulf of time, telling us something essential. Love is ancient. Love is fundamental. Love makes us do extraordinary things. As civilizations rose, as humans built cities and temples and palaces, love became more complicated. It became entangled with property and power, with family alliances and social hierarchies. In ancient Sumer, in the world's first great cities, love and marriage were matters of contract. A bride brought a dowry, A groom paid a bride price. Marriages were arranged between families to consolidate wealth, to forge alliances, to ensure that property passed to legitimate heirs. Love, if it came at all, came after marriage, not before. And yet, the Sumerians wrote love poetry. They told stories of divine lovers. They understood that beneath all the practicalities of life, there was something else, something that couldn't be bought or negotiated or controlled. The Epic of Gilgamesh, one of the oldest surviving works of literature, contains a profound meditation on love and friendship. Gilgamesh, the mighty king of Uruk, is a tyrant until he meets Enkidu, a wild man from the wilderness. They fight, then become inseparable friends. And when Enkidu dies, Gilgamesh is shattered. He weeps. He refuses to bury his friend for days, as if denial could defeat death. His grief is...
Let's move forward now, through the rise and fall of empires, through the expansion of Rome and its eventual collapse, through the chaotic centuries that followed, until we arrive in medieval Europe, in the 11th and 12th centuries CE. This is where something new happened, something that would reshape how we think about love forever. Picture a castle in the south of France, in the region called Provence. It's spring. The air smells of lavender and wild thyme. In a great hall, nobles have gathered for an evening of entertainment. A man steps forward with a lute. He is a troubadour, a poet-musician, and he begins to sing. His song is about a lady, a beautiful, virtuous, noble lady whom he loves from afar. He has never touched her. He may never touch her. She may be married to someone else, may be far above him in social rank, but he loves her with a love that is pure and ennobling, a love that makes him a better man, a love that is worth more than physical consummation. This is the birth of what we call courtly love or romantic love. It was a revolutionary idea. For most of human history, love and marriage were separate. Marriage was about alliances, property, heirs. Love, passionate love, was something that happened on the side, something dangerous and destabilizing, something that respectable people tried to avoid or at least keep private. But the troubadours said something different. They said that passionate love could be noble, that yearning, devotion, the willing subordination of yourself to the beloved, these were worthy, even sacred feelings. They elevated romantic love to something almost religious. Where did this idea come from? Some historians think it was influenced by the worship of the Virgin Mary, which was becoming increasingly popular in this period. Mary was pure, perfect, unattainable, and yet worthy of absolute devotion. The troubadours transferred this devotion to earthly women, creating a kind of secular religion of love. Others think it was a response to the harsh realities of medieval marriage. Marriages were arranged. Women had little choice in whom they married. So perhaps courtly love was a fantasy, an escape valve, a way to imagine a world where love mattered more than duty. Whatever its origins, courtly love spread across Europe. It became the subject of countless poems, songs, and stories. It gave us the legend of Lancelot and Guinevere, the knight who loves his king's wife, caught between loyalty and desire. It gave us Tristan and Isolde, who drink a love potion and fall into a passion so overwhelming it destroys them both. These stories don't end happily. Courtly love was often tragic, doomed, impossible, but that was part of the appeal. The suffering, the longing, the knowledge that fulfillment might never come, these were proof of love's authenticity and depth. One of the most influential texts of this period is The Art of Courtly Love, written by Andreas Papalanus, a chaplain at the court of Champagne around 1184. Andreas lays out rules for how love should be conducted. Some of them sound absurd to modern ears. He who is not jealous cannot love. Real jealousy always increases the worth of love. A new lover puts an old one to flight. But others sound surprisingly contemporary. Love can deny nothing to love. A lover is always fearful.
Every act of a lover ends in the thought of his beloved. Andreas also records judgments from courts of love, where noble ladies supposedly ruled on questions of romance. Can a married person truly love? Can love exist between peasants? If a man loves two women equally, which should he choose? These weren't real legal proceedings, of course. They were literary games, thought experiments. But they show how seriously medieval aristocrats took the business of love. It had become a subject worthy of debate, analysis, philosophy. Let me tell you one more medieval story, a true one. In the 12th century, there lived a philosopher and theologian named Peter Abelard. He was brilliant, charismatic, one of the most famous teachers in Paris. Students came from across Europe to hear him lecture on logic and theology. One of his students was a young woman named Eloise. She was brilliant too, highly educated, fluent in Latin and Greek, intellectually fearless. She was also much younger than Abelard, and she lived with her uncle, a powerful church official named Fulbert. Abelard hired Abelard to tutor Eloise, and Abelard and Eloise fell in love. Their relationship was passionate, intellectual, all-consuming. Abelard later wrote that they spent more time kissing than studying, that no stage of love was omitted. Eloise's letters are remarkable. She doesn't hide her continued passion for Abelard. She admits that even in the convent she thinks of him, desires him. She writes, "Those pleasures of lovers which we enjoyed together were so sweet to me that I cannot despise them, nor can I scarcely banish them from my memory. Even in sleep they do not spare me their illusions." She argues that she loved him not for what he could give her, not for marriage or security or status, but for him alone. She insists that she would rather be his mistress than any other man's wife, that what they shared was truer and deeper than any sanctioned relationship. Abelard's letters are more distant, more pious. He tries to redirect Eloise's passion towards God, but even he cannot fully let go of what they had. Their story became legendary. It was proof that love could survive anything: separation, injury, vows of celibacy, even the church itself. It was tragic and beautiful and utterly human.
Let's return now to the question we touched on earlier. What is love, really? What happens in our brains and bodies when we fall in love, when we bond with another person, when we grieve a loss? Science has given us some remarkable insights, but I want to be clear about something. Understanding the biology of love doesn't diminish its beauty. Knowing that a sunset is caused by the scattering of sunlight through the atmosphere doesn't make it less stunning. Knowing that music is vibrations in air doesn't make it less moving. And knowing the neurochemistry of love doesn't make it less profound. If anything, the science makes love more wondrous, because it reveals that what we experience as the most transcendent emotion is also deeply rooted in our animal nature, in brain structures we share with creatures much simpler than ourselves. Let's start with attraction. When you first see someone you find attractive, your brain's ventral tegmental area lights up. This is a tiny region deep in the midbrain, part of what's called the reward system. It releases dopamine, lots of it. Dopamine is the neurotransmitter of wanting. It's what makes you seek rewards, pursue goals, feel motivated. When dopamine floods your system, you feel energized, focused, alive. The world seems brighter, food tastes better, music sounds more beautiful. You can't stop thinking about the source of all this dopamine, the person who's captured your attention. This is why new love feels so intense, so all-consuming. Your brain is treating the beloved like a drug. Every text message, every smile, every touch triggers another dopamine release. You become, quite literally, addicted. At the same time, serotonin levels drop. Serotonin helps regulate mood and obsessive thoughts. When it's low, you can't stop ruminating. You replay conversations in your head. You analyze every word, every gesture. You check your phone constantly. This is the same pattern seen in people with obsessive-compulsive disorder. So in the early stages of love, you're basically high on dopamine and suffering from a mild case of OCD. Romantic? Maybe not, but true. If the relationship continues, other chemicals come into play. Oxytocin is released during physical intimacy,
kissing, hugging, sex. It's sometimes called the bonding hormone because it creates feelings of attachment and trust. Mother-infant bonding relies heavily on oxytocin. So does pair bonding between partners. Oxytocin is fascinating because it makes you feel close to a specific person. It doesn't make you love humanity in general. It makes you love this particular human to the exclusion of others. It creates an us and a them. Prairie voles, those small rodents I mentioned earlier, have taught us a lot about oxytocin. Most voles are promiscuous. They mate and move on. But prairie voles form lifelong pair bonds. They nest together, raise pups together, prefer each other's company over that of other voles. Scientists discovered that prairie voles have more oxytocin and vasopressin receptors in certain brain areas than their promiscuous cousins. And if you block these receptors, prairie voles stop forming pair bonds. They mate, but don't commit. The reverse is also true. If you give promiscuous voles extra oxytocin, they start acting like prairie voles, choosing partners, staying faithful, working together. This doesn't mean love is just chemistry. It means chemistry enables love. It means the feelings we experience, the warmth, the trust, the sense of safety and connection, these have a biological basis. Long-term love involves different brain systems than early, passionate love. Studies using fMRI scans have looked at people in long-term relationships, couples who've been together for 10, 20, 30 years, and who report still being deeply in love. What researchers found is that the brain activity in these long-term lovers looks different from the activity in new lovers. The dopamine-driven obsession calms down, but there's sustained activity in areas associated with attachment, reward, and positive emotions. Long-term love is less frantic, less anxious, but it's still rewarding. It's still activating the brain's pleasure centers. It's just doing it in a steadier, more sustainable way. This maps on to what many people report, that after the initial passion fades, what remains, if the relationship is healthy, is something deeper, a sense of comfort, of being known, of having a partner and facing the world. It's less like a drug high and more like coming home. But here's something important. Love isn't just one system in the brain. It involves many systems working together. There's the brain's attachment system, which makes us want to be close to certain people, to seek their company, to feel distress when separated. There's the caregiving system, which motivates us to care for others, especially those who are vulnerable or in need. There's the sexual desire system, which is related to but distinct from romantic love. You can desire someone without loving them. You can love someone without desiring them. Sometimes they overlap, sometimes they don't. And all of these systems are modulated by individual differences. Some people are anxious in relationships, constantly worrying about abandonment. Some are avoidant, uncomfortable with too much closeness. These patterns often stem from early experiences with caregivers. The quality of the bond you had with your parents or primary caregivers shapes how you bond with romantic partners later in life. There's a whole field of psychology, attachment theory, devoted to understanding these patterns. It's given us language for something many people intuitively understand, that the way we love is shaped by the way we were loved. One of the most moving experiments I've ever read about involves Harry Harlow's work with rhesus monkeys in the 1950s. Harry was trying to understand the nature of love, specifically mother-infant love. At the time, many psychologists believed that infants bonded with their mothers primarily because mothers provided food. Love was in this view just a side effect of survival. Harrow tested this idea by raising baby monkeys with two surrogate mothers. One was made of wire but provided milk from an attached bottle. The other was made of soft cloth but provided no food. If the prevailing theory was correct, the baby monkeys should have preferred the wire mother, the source of food. They didn't. The baby monkeys spent most of their time clinging to the cloth mother. They only went to the wire mother when they were hungry, then hurried back to the soft surrogate. When they were frightened, they ran to the cloth mother for comfort. The conclusion was clear. Infants need more than food. They need comfort, warmth, softness. They need something that feels like love. Harlow's work was controversial and, by modern standards, ethically troubling. The monkeys raised without real mothers suffered psychological damage. But the experiments demonstrated something profound: that love is a basic need, not a luxury. That we're wired to seek connection, touch, emotional warmth. This has been confirmed again and again in human studies. Children raised without affection, in orphanages where they're fed and housed but not held or comforted, develop serious problems. Their growth is stunted. Their brains show abnormalities. Some never fully recover. We need love the way we need food and water. It's not poetic exaggeration, it's biological fact. So far, we've focused mostly on romantic love. But love, as the ancient Greeks knew, comes in many forms. Let's talk about the love between parents and children. This is perhaps the most primal love of all. A mother's body nourishes a child for 9 months before birth. After birth, the child is helpless, more helpless than the young of almost any other species. Human babies can't walk, can't feed themselves, can't even hold up their own heads for weeks. They require constant care for years. This extreme helplessness is actually the result of our large brains. Human brains are so big that if we stayed in the womb long enough to be truly ready for the world, we'd be too big to fit through the birth canal. So we're born early, essentially premature by the standards of other animals. This means that human parenting requires an extraordinary investment of time and energy. And evolution has equipped us with powerful emotional mechanisms to ensure we make that investment. When a mother holds her newborn, when she looks into the baby's eyes, when she hears the baby cry, oxytocin floods her system. She feels overwhelmed with love, with a fierce desire to protect this small, vulnerable being. This isn't learned behavior, it's instinct, shaped by millions of years of evolution. Fathers, too, experience hormonal changes when they become parents. Testosterone drops slightly, prolactin and oxytocin increase. The brain rewires itself for caregiving. And here's something beautiful. These changes can happen in adoptive parents, in step-parents, in any adult who takes on the role of caring for a child. Biology provides the template, but experience shapes it. The brain is plastic, adaptable. It learns to love. Parenting love is usually described as selfless, unconditional, and in many ways it is. Parents will sacrifice sleep, money, personal ambitions, even their lives for their children. But parenting love is also complicated. Parents sometimes struggle with ambivalent feelings, love mixed with frustration, resentment, exhaustion. They may worry they're not good enough, not patient enough, not loving enough. They may feel overwhelmed by the responsibility. And children, especially as they grow older, don't always make it easy to love them. They test boundaries, rebel, say hurtful things. The love remains, but it's tested. Moreover, not all parenting love is healthy. Some parents love too much, becoming overprotective, unable to let go. Some love conditionally, offering affection only when the child meets certain expectations. Some, tragically, are unable to love at all, trapped by their own trauma or mental illness. But when parenting love works, when it's warm but not smothering, supportive but not controlling, consistent and reliable, it gives children a foundation, a secure base from which to explore the world, a sense that they matter, that they're valued, that they're lovable. This foundation shapes everything that comes after. Then there's the love between friends. The Greeks called this philia, and We need to talk about the other side of love now, the shadow side, the part that no one wants, but almost everyone experiences. Heartbreak. Losing love, whether through breakup, betrayal, death, or simply the slow erosion of what once felt eternal, is one of the most painful experiences a human can endure. Studies have shown that social pain activates the same brain regions as physical pain. When you say your heart is broken, you're not speaking metaphorically. Your brain processes the loss of love similarly to how it processes a physical injury. People who've been through breakups report symptoms that look a lot like withdrawal from drugs, obsessive thoughts about the person, inability to focus, loss of appetite, insomnia, depression. They check their ex's social media compulsively. They replay memories, searching for what went wrong. They swing between anger and longing, between wanting to move on and wanting to try again. This is your brain struggling to break a bond, to rewire itself, to accept that someone who was central to your life is now gone. In his book Lament for a Son, Nicholas Wolterstorff writes about losing his 25-year-old son in a mountain climbing accident. He writes, "How is faith to endure, O God, when you allow all this scraping and tearing on us? You have allowed rivers of blood to flow, mountains of suffering to pile up, sobs to become humanity's song, all without lifting a finger that we could see. You have allowed bonds of love beyond number to be painfully ripped apart. If you have not abandoned us, explain yourself. This is the cry of someone whose love has been torn away. It's raw, angry, bewildered. It doesn't tie up with a neat bow. It sits in the pain. The death of a loved one is perhaps the ultimate heartbreak because it's final. There's no possibility of reconciliation, no chance to say what was left unsaid, no hope that time will bring them back. Different cultures have different rituals for grief, but all recognize that it requires time, space, community. In some traditions, there are formal mourning periods, days, weeks, months, when the bereaved are excused from normal obligations, when the community gathers to share memories and offer support. In modern Western culture, we are often uncomfortable with grief. We want people to get over it, to move on, to return to normal functioning as quickly as possible. We don't know what to say, so we say nothing, or we offer platitudes like, "They're in a better place," "Time heals all wounds," "Everything happens for a reason." But grief doesn't follow a schedule, and it doesn't move in a straight line. You don't go through stages in order and come out healed on the other side. You cycle through them, returning to anger or denial or despair long after you thought you'd moved past them. And here's something important. Grief is love. Grief is the price we pay for having loved. The deeper the love, the deeper the grief. If you could choose not to grieve, you would be choosing not to have loved in the first place. But not all heartbreak comes from death. Sometimes love ends while both people are still alive. Relationships dissolve. Marriages end in divorce. People grow apart, or hurt each other, or realize they want different things. This kind of heartbreak has its own particular cruelty, because the person you love is still out there in the world. You might see them with someone new. You might have to interact with them if you have children together or work in the same place. You have to watch them move on while you're still stuck. And if the relationship ended badly, with betrayal or cruelty, there's not just grief, but anger, humiliation, a sense that you were a fool for loving them at all. Romantic breakups can shake your sense of self. You defined yourself partly through the relationship. You made plans that included this other person. When the relationship ends, you have to rebuild your identity, reimagine your future. Who are you without them? What do you want now? These are difficult questions, but they're also opportunities. Because here's the remarkable thing about the human heart. It can heal. Not completely, perhaps, not without scars, but it can heal. Psychologists talk about post-traumatic growth, the idea that trauma, including the trauma of loss, can lead to positive changes. People who've been through heartbreak often report that they gained something from the experience: greater empathy, deeper self-knowledge, stronger relationships with friends and family, a clearer sense of what matters. This doesn't mean the pain was worth it. It doesn't mean you should be grateful for the heartbreak, but it means that suffering doesn't have to be only destructive. It can also be transformative. Healing requires time. It requires feeling your feelings, not pushing them away or numbing them. It requires self-compassion. It requires support from others. And eventually, not right away, but eventually, you find that you can think about the person without it hurting quite so much. You find that you can imagine loving again, that the idea doesn't terrify you. You find that your heart, which felt shattered, has somehow knit itself back together. Not the same as before, but whole enough, strong enough. Let's come forward now to the present day, to the world we actually live in, with all its complexities and contradictions. Love hasn't changed, not fundamentally, but the way we experience it, the way we seek it, the way we express it, these have changed enormously. Consider how people meet. For most of human history, your potential partners were limited to people in your immediate vicinity. You married someone from your village, your neighborhood, your religious community, your social class. Your family probably had a say in the match. Choice was limited. In the modern world, especially in the West, we have unprecedented freedom. We can meet people from anywhere. We can choose our partners based on personal preference rather than family obligation. Love matches have replaced arranged marriages. This freedom is wonderful, but it also brings challenges. When you could potentially be with anyone, how do you choose? When you meet someone online, you see a curated profile, not a whole person. You might be simultaneously talking to multiple people, each conversation a possibility, none a commitment. It's exciting, but it's also exhausting. And there's always the question, is this the best person for me, or is someone better just a swipe away? This is sometimes called the paradox of choice. Too many options can lead to anxiety, indecision, constant second-guessing. Instead of committing to one person and working through difficulties, people might bail at the first sign of trouble, thinking there's someone more compatible out there. Online dating has also changed the dynamics of romance. In previous generations, you might fall in love with someone you'd known for months or years, a classmate, a coworker, a friend of a friend. You saw them in multiple contexts. You watched how they treated others. Your feelings developed gradually. Now, people often go on dates with near strangers. You meet for coffee based on a profile and a few messages. The first meeting is essentially a job interview. Are you attracted to this person? Do you have chemistry? Do your life goals align? It's efficient, but it's not necessarily romantic. Some people thrive in this environment. Others find it alienating, transactional, demoralizing. And there are real concerns about how dating apps are designed. They're businesses, and their business model depends on keeping you using the app. If you find a great partner and delete the app, you're no longer a customer. So the apps are incentivized to keep you searching, to make you feel like there's always someone better just out of reach. Social media has also changed love. In some ways, it's made connection easier. You can maintain relationships over long distances. You can share your life with friends and family instantly. You can find communities of people who share your interests or experiences. But social media also creates new pressures. There's the performance of love. Couples post photos of date nights, vacations, anniversaries. They caption them with declarations of devotion. This can be genuine, but it can also be performative, a way of signaling to others, and maybe to yourself, that the relationship is good, even when it's not. There's the comparison trap. You see other people's relationships, or at least the carefully curated versions they share, and yours feels lacking. Why doesn't your partner surprise you with flowers? Why don't you go on exotic vacations? Why does love seem easy for everyone else but hard for you? Of course, what you're seeing isn't reality. It's a highlight reel. Everyone struggles. Everyone has conflicts and doubts and unglamorous moments, but social media doesn't show that. There's also the issue of digital infidelity. Is it cheating to flirt with someone online? To exchange messages that you hide from your partner? To maintain an emotional intimacy with someone else? Different people draw the line in different places, and this can lead to conflict. The modern world has also brought new possibilities for love. LGBTQ relationships, which were hidden or criminalized for most of history, are now legal and celebrated in many places. People can love openly, marry, raise children without fear. This is a tremendous victory, though there's still work to be done in many parts of the world. Polyamory and non-traditional relationship structures are more visible and accepted. Some people find that they can love more than one person at a time, that monogamy doesn't suit them. They create relationships based on honesty, consent, and negotiation rather than default cultural scripts. There's growing awareness of different attachment styles, love languages, and relationship patterns. People have language for what they need and what they struggle with. Therapy and self-help resources are widely available. This can help people build healthier, more intentional relationships. At the same time, there are concerns about loneliness and isolation. Despite all our technology, many people feel disconnected. Dating apps can feel dehumanizing. Hookup culture leaves some people feeling empty. The decline of traditional community structures, churches, civic organizations, stable neighborhoods, means people have fewer built-in social networks. Rates of loneliness have been rising, especially among young adults.
We've traveled through history, through biology, through culture. Now let's slow down and think more deeply. Let's ask the philosophical questions, the ones that don't have easy answers. What is love at its core? Is it a feeling, a choice, a commitment, all three? Feelings come and go. You feel passionate one day, irritated the next. You feel close one moment, distant the next.
If love is just a feeling, then it's unstable, unreliable. It can't be trusted. So maybe love is a choice. You choose to be with someone, to prioritize them, to keep showing up even when the feelings fade. This view emphasizes loyalty, commitment, the decision to love even when it's hard. There's truth in this. Love does require choice. But if it's only choice, if there's no feeling, no desire, no joy, is it really love, or is it just obligation? Maybe love is both. It starts with feeling, attraction, connection, delight, but it's sustained by choice. You feel and then you choose to act on that feeling. You choose to build a life together. And sometimes the feeling follows the choice. You commit, you invest, and the feelings deepen in response. The philosopher Erich Fromm wrote a book called The Art of Loving, in which he argued that love is not something that happens to you, but something you do. Love is a practice, a skill, something you have to learn and cultivate. Fromm said that immature love says, "I love you because I need you." Mature love says, "I need you because I love you." The difference is subtle but profound. Immature love is about getting your needs met. You love someone because they make you feel good, because they fill a void. This kind of love is essentially selfish, and it's fragile, because if the person stops meeting your needs, the love evaporates. Mature love is about giving. You love someone because you genuinely want their happiness, their growth, their flourishing. You need them not because you're incomplete without them, but because you've chosen to build a life together, and they've become essential to that life. This kind of love is generous, expansive, and much more resilient. Fromm also argued that you can't truly love another person until you've developed self-love and the capacity for love in general. Love is a practice. You cultivate it the way you'd cultivate any other skill, through attention, discipline, effort. The philosopher Bell Hooks wrote about love as a verb, an action, not just a feeling. She defined love as the will to extend oneself for the purpose of nurturing one's own or another's spiritual growth. This definition emphasizes that love is intentional. It's not passive. It requires effort, and its aim is growth, helping yourself and the other person become more fully who you're meant to be. Hooks also wrote about the importance of combining love with justice. If you love someone, you want them to be treated fairly, to have their needs met, to be free from harm. So love necessarily involves standing up against injustice. This expands love beyond the personal. It means that love is political, that it's connected to how we organize society, how we treat the vulnerable, how we create conditions where everyone can thrive. The Buddhist tradition offers yet another perspective. In Buddhism, there are different kinds of love. There's metta, often translated as loving kindness, a warm, benevolent attitude toward all beings. There's karuna, compassion, the wish for others to be free from suffering. And there's mudita, sympathetic joy, the ability to feel happiness for others' happiness. Buddhist practice involves cultivating these attitudes through meditation. You start with yourself, wishing yourself happiness and freedom from suffering. Then you extend this wish to loved ones, to neutral people, to difficult people, and eventually to all beings everywhere. This might sound abstract or impractical, but it's based on a deep insight that our usual mode of love is limited and conditional. We love our family and friends, but feel indifferent or hostile towards strangers and enemies. We want good things for ourselves, but don't care much if others suffer, as long as it doesn't affect us. Buddhist practice aims to break down these barriers, to recognize that everyone wants to be happy, everyone wants to avoid suffering, and everyone deserves compassion. This doesn't mean you have to be best friends with everyone, but it means approaching all people with basic goodwill and respect. This kind of love, universal, unconditional, is incredibly challenging, but it's incredibly powerful. It's what motivated figures like Martin Luther King Jr. and Thich Nhat Hanh, and countless others who worked for peace and justice. The Christian tradition, especially as articulated in the New Testament, talks about agape, selfless, sacrificial love. The most famous passage is probably 1 Corinthians 13. Love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud, it does not dishonor others, it is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs. This is love as a moral ideal, a way of being in the world. It's not about feelings or passion, it's about how you treat people, with patience, kindness, humility, forgiveness. Jesus' command to love your neighbor as yourself, and even to love your enemies, takes this to an extreme. It says that love should not be limited to people who love you back, who are easy to love. It should extend to everyone, even those who hurt you. This is an incredibly high standard. Most of us fail at it constantly, but it's meant as a North Star, a direction to move toward, even if we never fully arrive. So what is love? Maybe it's all of these things: feeling and choice, passion and commitment, self-extension and self-transcendence, personal and political, biological and spiritual. Maybe love is the thing that refuses to be pinned down, that exceeds every definition, that remains mysterious even as we study it and write about it and try to understand it. And maybe that's part of its power. If love is so wonderful, why is it so hard? Why do so many relationships fail? Why do people who once adored each other end up bitter and estranged? Why does something that should be natural and joyful so often become a source of pain? Part of the answer is that love requires things that don't come easily to most people. Love requires vulnerability. You have to open yourself up, share your fears and hopes and secrets, risk rejection. This is terrifying. Most of us have been hurt before. We've learned to protect ourselves, to keep parts of ourselves hidden. Love asks us to lower those defenses. Love requires seeing the other person clearly, not the idealized version you fell in love with, but the real, flawed, complicated human being. They have annoying habits, insecurities, bad days. They'll disappoint you sometimes. They'll hurt you, usually unintentionally. Can you love them anyway? Love requires communication. You have to be able to express your needs, your frustrations, your boundaries. You have to be able to listen when your partner does the same. This is harder than it sounds. Many of us didn't grow up with healthy models of communication. We learned to avoid conflict, or to fight dirty, or to shut down. Unlearning these patterns takes work. Love requires forgiveness, not for abuse or betrayal. Some things break trust beyond repair, but for everyday hurts, for mistakes, for the times when your partner is thoughtless or unkind because they're stressed or tired or struggling. Holding grudges poisons relationships. Forgiveness heals them. Love requires compromise. You're two separate people with different backgrounds, different preferences, different ways of being in the world. You have to negotiate. Sometimes you get your way, sometimes theirs. Sometimes you find a third option that works for both. This requires flexibility, creativity, and a willingness to prioritize the relationship over being right. Love requires effort. The early stages might feel effortless. You're high on dopamine, everything is new and exciting. But sustaining love over years or decades requires intention. You have to keep choosing each other, keep making time for each other, keep finding ways to connect even when life is busy and stressful. And then there are external challenges. Financial stress is one of the leading causes of relationship conflict. When there's not enough money, when you're worried about bills or job security, it creates tension. Couples fight about spending habits, priorities, who's contributing more. Money represents security, freedom, values. So disagreements about money are really disagreements about much deeper things. Parenting is another major challenge. Raising children is exhausting, all-consuming. New parents often struggle to find time and energy for their relationship. They might disagree about parenting approaches, feel resentful about unequal division of labor, or simply be too tired for intimacy. And many couples report that relationship satisfaction drops after the birth of a child and doesn't recover until the kids leave home. Illness, whether physical or mental, puts strain on relationships. One partner becomes a caregiver, the dynamics shift. The sick person might feel guilty, burdensome. The caregiver might feel overwhelmed, resentful, trapped. Even when both people have good intentions, it's hard. Trauma and mental health issues bring their own challenges. Someone with PTSD might have trouble with trust or intimacy. Someone with depression might withdraw, unable to give much emotionally. Someone with anxiety might need constant reassurance. These conditions are not anyone's fault, but they affect relationships. Infidelity is one of the most damaging challenges. When someone cheats, whether emotionally or physically, it shatters trust. The betrayed partner feels devastated, humiliated, unable to believe anything the other person says. Some couples recover from infidelity, but it requires complete honesty, genuine remorse, and a lot of time and work. Many don't make it. And then there's the simple fact that people change. The person you married at 25 might be different at 35, and different again at 45. Both of you evolve, and sometimes you evolve in compatible ways, and sometimes you don't. Maybe one of you becomes more religious or less. Maybe one wants children and the other realizes.
But let's not end on a dark note, because for all its challenges, love is also the source of life's greatest joys. Love makes life meaningful. When people are asked what matters most to them, they almost always talk about relationships. Not money, not achievements, not possessions. Relationships. The people they love and who love them back. Love gives you someone to share things with. The big things, triumphs and tragedies, adventures and milestones. But also the small things. A funny observation, a beautiful sunset, a quiet evening. These moments mean more when shared. Love provides support. When you're struggling, when you're afraid, when you're facing something hard, it helps to not be alone, to have someone who believes in you, who reminds you of your strength, who sits with you in the dark until dawn comes. Love teaches you about yourself. Your partner holds up a mirror. They see parts of you that you don't. They call you out when you're being unfair or unkind. They celebrate qualities you might not value in yourself. Through their eyes, you come to know yourself more fully. Love encourages growth. A good partner wants you to become your best self. They support your goals, challenge you to grow, believe in your potential. They don't try to keep you small or dependent. They want you to flourish, even if it means you'll change, even if it's uncomfortable. Love creates beauty. Think of all the art inspired by love. Poems, songs, paintings, novels, films. Think of the gardens planted for a beloved, the meals cooked with care, the love letters saved in drawers. Love makes us want to create, to give, to make the world more beautiful. Love brings joy, the simple joy of making someone laugh, the joy of knowing someone deeply and being known, the joy of touch, of intimacy, of waking up next to someone you adore. The joy of building a life together, of having a partner in all of it. There's also the love that expands beyond one person. When you have children, you experience a love so fierce it transforms you. You would do anything for them. You worry about them constantly. You marvel at who they're becoming. You see the world through new eyes, full of both wonder and danger. When you have close friends, you have people who celebrate with you and mourn with you, who make you laugh until you cry, who've seen you at your worst and love you anyway. You have a chosen family. When you love your work, it gives your days purpose and satisfaction. You're contributing something, creating something, using your gifts. When you love a place, a city, a landscape, a home, it grounds you. It gives you roots, a sense of belonging. When you love a cause, it gives you direction. It pulls you out of self-absorption and connects you to something larger. All of these are forms of love. All enrich life immeasurably. There's one more thing we need to talk about, the hardest thing. Love and death are intertwined. To love is to accept that you will lose. Either the person you love will die, or you will die and leave them behind. This is unavoidable. It's the price of admission. When you're young, you don't think about this much. Death feels distant, abstract. But as you age, as you lose grandparents, parents, friends, the reality becomes impossible to ignore. Everyone you love will die. Everyone. This knowledge can make love feel almost unbearable. How can you open your heart fully when you know it will be broken? And yet, we do. We love anyway. We have children knowing we might outlive them. We marry knowing one of us will have to say goodbye. We adopt pets who will almost certainly die before we do. Why? Because the alternative, to live without love, to protect yourself by never connecting, is not living at all. It's just existing, going through the motions. Safe, perhaps, but empty.
The poet Mary Oliver wrote, "To live in this world, you must be able to do three things: to love what is mortal, to hold it against your bones, knowing your own life depends on it, and, when the time comes to let it go, to let it go. To love what is mortal, to hold it close, knowing it won't last, to cherish it because it won't last. This is the deepest wisdom about love." Different cultures have different ways of thinking about love and death. In Mexico, the Day of the Dead celebrates deceased loved ones. Families build altars with photos, favorite foods, marigolds. They visit graves, tell stories, laugh, and cry. Death is not hidden or sanitized. It's acknowledged as part of life, and the dead remain part of the family. In Japan, there's the concept of mono no aware, which we discussed earlier, the bittersweet awareness of impermanence. Cherry blossoms are treasured precisely because they bloom for such a short time. Their beauty is inseparable from their transience. In the Buddhist tradition, meditation on impermanence is a core practice. Everything changes. Everything ends. Clinging to what cannot last causes suffering. The practice is to love deeply while holding lightly, to appreciate what is without grasping. These traditions don't eliminate the pain of loss, but they provide frameworks for holding that pain, for integrating it into life rather than being destroyed by it. One of the most moving books I've ever read is When Breath Becomes Air by Paul Kalanithi. Kalanithi was a neurosurgeon who was diagnosed with terminal lung cancer in his mid-30s. The book is his reflection on life, death, meaning, and love. He writes about his relationship with his wife, Lucy. They had been together for years, navigating the demands of medical training, sometimes growing distant, sometimes reconnecting. When he got his diagnosis, everything changed. They had to decide, do we have a baby, knowing I probably won't live to raise them? They decided, yes. They chose life, chose love, chose hope, even in the face of certain loss. Kalanithi died before his daughter was even a year old. But before he died, he held her. He loved her. He left her letters, a legacy of love. His death was a tragedy, but his life, even cut short, was full of love and meaning. This is what love does. It makes even a short life feel complete. It makes suffering bearable. It makes mortality, somehow, okay. The future of love. Where is love going? What will it look like in 50 years, 100 years, 500 years? Some trends seem clear. Technology will continue to shape how we meet, communicate, and relate. Virtual reality might allow long-distance couples to feel like they're together. AI might become sophisticated enough to provide companionship, even love, or at least something that feels like it. This raises fascinating and unsettling questions. Can you love a being that isn't human? If an AI is sophisticated enough to seem to have feelings, to understand you, to provide emotional support, does it matter that it's not real in the way humans are real? Some people already form deep attachments to virtual characters, to chatbots, to AIs. Critics dismiss this as sad or pathological, but maybe it's just a new form of connection, no more or less valid than long-distance relationships or pen pals. Then again, there are risks. If AI companions are perfectly attuned to your needs, never arguing, never disappointing, always available, might people prefer them to messy, complicated human relationships? Might we withdraw further into isolation, each of us with our personalized digital companion? Another trend is the increasing acceptance of diverse relationship structures. For most of history, the norm was heterosexual, monogamous marriage. Deviations from this were hidden, punished, or pitied. But norms are changing. Same-sex relationships are legal and increasingly accepted. Non-binary and transgender people are claiming their right to love and be loved as their authentic selves. Polyamorous and open relationships are more visible. Some people are choosing not to partner at all, finding fulfillment in friendships, community, creative work. This diversity is beautiful. It means more people can find relationship structures that actually work for them, rather than forcing themselves into ill-fitting molds. But this also requires us to navigate new complexities. How do you do polyamory ethically? How do you communicate needs when there's no cultural script to follow? How do you deal with jealousy, time management, conflicting desires? These aren't easy questions, but the fact that we're asking them is progress. There's also the question of how longer lifespans will affect love. Humans are living longer than ever. In developed countries, average life expectancy is approaching 80, and many scientists believe we'll soon extend it further. What happens when people routinely live to 100 or 120? Will marriages last entire lifetimes, or will people have multiple serious partnerships over the course of a century? Will we see the rise of renewable marriages, contracts that expire after a certain number of years and have to be consciously renewed? Will the experience of love change if we're no longer racing against time? If we know we have decades ahead of us? If we know we have decades ahead of us? It's hard to predict, but it will be interesting. Climate change, political instability, technological disruption, all of these will shape love too. In times of crisis, love becomes both more urgent and more difficult. People pull together, forming tight bonds of solidarity, but they also experience trauma, displacement, loss. If migration increases due to